With a rich history stretching back over 10,000 years, Laos is a land of elephants, spectacular natural wonders, and ancient spiritual traditions. With many of its cities along the banks of the mighty Mekong River, it is home to one of the largest waterfalls on the planet. Join us on an aerial journey across one of the most fascinating countries in Southeast Asia. From the earliest settlements which spread along the banks of the Mekong, to the story of Laos's journey towards independence from French colonial forces, and the spectacular monuments erected by Laos's rulers during the country's golden age. This is the story of a landlocked nation that today is one of the world's poorest, but once ruled over an area which stretched as far as modern Thailand. A country fought over fiercely by its Asian neighbors, including Vietnam and Siam. We learn too about the tragic history of Laos in the Vietnam War, and the brutal legacy of unexploded bombs left in the wake of the conflict, which continue to take the lives of Laos's people today. Through the lives of its rulers, revolutionaries, kings, and the people of Laos themselves, we reveal how modern Laos was born. A fast-developing nation, Laos is blessed with a rich spiritual and cultural history and landscapes of breathtaking beauty. The Lao People's Democratic Republic, or Laos, is a landlocked nation located on the Indo-Chinese peninsula. We begin our journey in the capital, Vientiane, before making our way to Luang Prabang, the former royal capital of Laos, until Pathet Lao communist forces took power in 1975. Traveling east to Porn Sawan, we witness the scars still left in the landscape following heavy bombing during the Vietnam War. Finally, we will visit Pak Se in the south, the country's second largest city and the ancient capital of the Champasak Kingdom. Welcome to Vientiane, home to around 800,000 people. The capital is the country's largest city and the economic center of Laos. Situated on the banks of the Mekong River and close to the border with Thailand, the city is also the political and cultural center of the country today. The origins of Laos lie in the ancient kingdom of Lan Xang, which flourished between the 14th and 18th centuries and was a precursor to the modern nation. At the heart of Vientiane, we find a statue of the King Phagum, who founded the Lan Xang Kingdom in 1353 in Xing Tong, today's Luang Prabang. Its armies were a formidable force in the region. The Lan Xang Kingdom can be said to have deserved its name, which refers to its martial strength, land of 1,000,000 elephants under the white parasol. For 3.5 centuries, Phagum and his successors would rule over a land the size of modern Laos, which included parts of Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand. On a quiet roundabout in the heart of Vientiane stands a stupa, believed to have been erected during the 16th century at the height of the Lan Xang Kingdom. Tat Dam is one of the few ancient stupas that remain standing in the city today, and according to legend, was the home of the seven-headed water serpent that fought to protect the city of Vientiane, her people, and the entire kingdom from Siamese invaders. The Kingdom of Siam invaded the city on numerous occasions, and during the Siamese-Laotian War in the 1820s, the gold on the stupa was looted and taken to Siam, now Thailand, leaving the stupa black as it appears today. Laos's origins stretch back long before Lan Xang, to the battles for dominance among the ethnic Thai peoples, believed to have first come from Guangxi in China during the first millennium. With few written records, archaeologists are only now beginning to piece together the history of the region. The Vientiane City Pillar Shrine was built following an excavation in 2007. This uncovered over 400 fragments of what were once pillars of an ancient city built around the 4th and 5th centuries. The site is believed to be the ancient center of the city. Vientiane only became the capital of Lansang during the 16th century, when the capital was moved to avoid a threat of invasion from what is now Myanmar. Several Buddhist temples were constructed to mark the occasion. Built by King Sethathirat in 1565 to house a stunning emerald Buddha, Ho Pa Khao is one of the city's most impressive temples. A number of Buddhas sit on the terrace, some dating back to the 6th and 9th centuries. There is also a throne for the Emerald Buddha, which now sits empty. The Emerald Buddha itself was seized by invading Siamese general Chao Phraya Chakri in 1779 and taken to Thonburi in modern Bangkok, where the Buddha now resides. Ho Pa Khao is now a museum displaying some of Laos's finest examples of religious art. Also built by King Sethathirat was That Luang, although some believe it was constructed earlier still in the 2nd or 3rd centuries to house relics of the Buddha himself. The stupa is typical of Buddhist Lao architectural style, with finely gilded red lacquer doors and countless images of the Buddha. The stupa has been damaged on several occasions by invading forces from Burma, China and Siam, but has withstood them all. Printed on the Laos national seal and the most sacred monument in the country, That Luang is widely regarded as a symbol of the nation. That Luang was once surrounded by 30 smaller stupas and a number of temples. Today, only the north and south temples remain. To the south of the stupa, we find the gardens of Wat That Luang Thai and a 24-meter reclining gold Buddha. The reclining Buddha represents the Buddha during his final illness and symbolizes the moment before entering nirvana in peace. Also erected by King Sethathirat in the 16th century is Wat Xinwang, one of Vientiane's most popular places of worship. Built on the ruins of a Khmer shrine, local legend tells the story of a young pregnant woman named Xinwang who sacrificed herself to appease the angry spirits, leaping into a hole in the center of the temple, only to be crushed by the last pillar. There is a small statue dedicated to Xinwang beside the building. When the last king of Langsang died without leaving an heir, the kingdom fell to neighboring Pegu, modern-day Myanmar, and the land was separated into 3 to form the kingdoms of Vientiane, Luang Prabang and Champasak. Beside the Mekong River stands a statue dedicated to the last monarch of Vientiane. After his kingdom had suffered a series of humiliating defeats against neighboring Siam, in 1827 King Chao Anuung took a stand, but he miscalculated how outmatched he was. Defeated, he was driven into exile and eventually captured and killed. Vientiane itself was annexed by the Siamese before being completely destroyed and its population dispersed. King Chao Anuung is nevertheless considered a hero by Lao nationalists. King Anuung was also the architect in 1818 of Wat Shi Saket. This temple was designed in the Siam style of Buddhist architecture rather than the traditional Laotian way. Typical of this style is the surrounding terrace and ornate 5-tiered roof. This design may have kept the temple safe from the marauding armies of Siam, who destroyed much of the city of Vientiane after Anuung's rebellion in 1827. The armies of Siam even used the temple as their headquarters during the attack. Having survived the Siamese-Lao War, Wat Shi Saket is one of the oldest Buddhist monasteries in Laos to maintain its original decor. Vientiane boasts not only traditional buildings, but several examples of contemporary Laotian architecture. This is the Lao National Culture Hall. Built in 1990, it was financed by a grant from the People's Republic of China. After China objected to Vietnam's invasion of Cambodia in 1978 to unseat the Khmer Rouge, Laos cooled its relationship towards Beijing in solidarity. During the 1990s, trade with China increased steadily, and today projects like the National Culture Hall are binding stronger ties between the two nations. To the north of the city, in the Sai Seta district, is the newly built Cultural Quarter, home to various museums and libraries. Built in 2012, Lao International Convention Center is one of the largest in the country. At 25,000 square meters, it accommodates 3,000 people and was built with assistance from the Chinese government. It is regularly used for international conventions and trade markets. The Sai Seta district is also home to the Lao National Museum. The museum tells the story of Laos's history, exhibiting rare archaeological findings and manuscripts. Housed in an old French colonial building, it focuses on Laos's struggle against the French occupation. After a number of revolts during the early 20th century, Laos attained independence in 1954. Much of Laos's modern history is dominated by its struggle for independence, first from France, and then against the intervention of the US during the Vietnam War. The President Kaesoni Phomvihan Memorial Museum was erected to honor Laos's former president and revolutionary communist leader, a key figure in the Pathet Lao organization, the country's equivalent to the Viet Minh in Vietnam. Actively involved in the Viet Minh in the 1940s, Kaesoni returned to Laos to become the head of the Communist Party in 1955. He led communist forces in the Civil War against the newly independent constitutional monarchy and the US. He then established the Lao People's Democratic Republic in 1975 and remained leader of the Revolutionary Party until his death in 1992.
The world in all its wonders on the Discovery Networks this June. On Discovery, going off-grid for heart-pumping, spirit-soaring treks.
When I walk, I'm learning. And when I walk, I'm connecting with the place.
Expedition Asia with Ryan Pyle. On TLC. Culinary magic in a jiffy.
Textures, flavor galore, and fast. What a lovely treat.
Jamie's quick and easy food. On Animal Planet. Embark on a global odyssey where aquatic creatures coexist amidst ethereal beauty. World of Oceans. On Discovery Asia, off-roading in the Himalayan foothills.
Look at this view, it's incredible. I did it!
For big, bold, duster adventures. Your world on the Discovery Networks this June.
Originally built between 1957 and 1968, Patusai Monument was dedicated to those who had fought in the struggle for independence against France. It was built using funds from the US government and cement originally intended for a new airport. The Royal Laotian government built this monument instead, earning it the nickname the Vertical Runway. In May 1975, the communist Pathet Lao, with Khe Sone amongst its leading figures, overthrew the coalition government and seized power, putting an end to the monarchy. They named the monument Patusai in honor of their own victory. Flowing from the north to the south of the country, the Mekong River serves not only as an economic and agricultural resource, but also as a natural border between Laos and its neighboring countries. Straddling the river is the first Thai-Laos Friendship Bridge. Opened in 1994, it connects the wider Vientiane region to Nong Khai province in Thailand. The center of the 1,170-meter bridge is marked by the national flags of Laos and Thailand to signify the border between the two nations. Since this first bridge was erected, 3 more friendship bridges connecting Laos and Thailand have opened. And as cooperation across borders continues, 3 more are planned to be built in future. In this suburb, 25 kilometers southeast of Vientiane, is Buddha Park, also known as Xieng Quan, or Spirit City. Buddha Park is a sculpture park containing over 200 Hindu and Buddhist statues. The largest is a 40-meter-high reclining Buddha. Buddhism was permitted even during the strict early years of communist rule, since the communist government in Laos taught that Marxism and Buddhism were compatible. Both stated that all men were equal, and both aimed to put an end to human suffering. Though these sometimes bizarre statues of gods, animals and demons appear to be centuries old, they are actually made of concrete and were constructed a matter of decades ago. About 20 kilometers north of the capital, along the Mekong River, is a small village called Ta Gong. Nestled on the banks of a major tributary of the Mekong, the Nam Gung River, is a picturesque village surrounded by small fish farms. The many floating restaurants around Ta Gong serve fish straight from the river and are one of the most popular places to eat in the country. The Nam Gung River originates from the northern mountainous region of Xieng Quan province and flows south through Vientiane province before joining the Mekong at the capital. Its river basin is home to approximately 1 million people. The river is also home to the first hydropower dam built in Laos. The Nam Gung Dam. Completed in 1984, the Nam Gung generates most of Laos's electricity, including enough to power the entire capital city. A further 70 to 80% of the electricity produced here is exported to Thailand. The government plans to double current energy production by 2020 to become the battery of Southeast Asia, but several groups warn of the project's impact on the environment. The collapse of a dam in 2018 devastated several villages, raising further concerns about Laos's projects along the Mekong. The dam also serves as a crucial juncture in the infrastructure of the country's water strategy. Holding up to 8.5 billion cubic meters of water, the Nam Gung Reservoir is the largest body of water in the country. Surrounded by picturesque fishing villages, towering lush green forests, and populated by hundreds of unspoiled islands, the area around this reservoir has unsurprisingly also become a popular tourist destination in Vientiane province. As we travel towards Vang Vieng, the next stop on our journey, our arrival is heralded by the steep mountains, characteristic of the north of the country. Situated 155 kilometers north of the capital, Vang Vieng hosted a US Air Force base during the Vietnam War. In more recent times, Vang Vieng has grown to become the tourist capital of Laos, with backpackers and international travelers attracted to the town in search of fun. The town of Vang Vieng was once synonymous with the wrong sort of backpacker and the phenomenon of tubing. Tourists would relax in the Nam Song River in tractor-tire inner tubes. As the popularity of tubing grew, so did the number of people dying while under the influence. In 2012, the Lao government carried out a crackdown in Vang Vieng. Tubing still happens, but in a much more controlled fashion. Further upstream is a traditional Rao-style bamboo bridge. This handmade bridge is still in use today and is an integral part of daily life for locals in the area. Tourists tend to use these Hua Chuk speedboats to explore the surrounding area. While the old days of excess in Vang Vieng appear to be somewhat curbed, it is unlikely that the region will cease to draw high-spirited tourists with a sense of adventure. Another staple of Laos's tourist trail in Vang Vieng is the aptly named Blue Lagoon. As the name suggests, the water here is an incredible shade of turquoise blue, owing to the suspended limestone crystals in the water. Such is the popularity of the Blue Lagoon that a number of imitations have now started springing up and charging tourists hefty entry fees. This is the original true lagoon. More than 4,600 kilometers of rivers make up the highways and byways of traditional Laos. The Mekong is the longest and most important route and is navigable all year round. Following the Mekong River, we have arrived in the city of Luang Prabang at the confluence of the Mekong and the Nam Kang rivers. In 1707, following the disintegration of the kingdom of Lang Sang, the city became the capital of the new kingdom of Luang Prabang. It became the royal seat during the French colonial period until Pathet Lao takeover in 1975. At the heart of the city stands the former royal palace. It was built in 1904 for King Shisawang Wong, a lifelong supporter of French rule in Laos. In 1945, he refused to cooperate with Lao nationalists and was deposed. He was reinstated by the French when they again tried to impose colonial rule on Laos in 1946. He died in 1959, and the palace has since been converted into the Luang Prabang National Museum. In front of the theatre stands a statue of King Shisawang Wong, the last ruler of the Luang Prabang Kingdom and the first of the Kingdom of Laos. The royal temple was built to house Laos's most sacred statue, the Golden Prabang Buddha, a gift in 1353 from the King of Angkor. When the statue was stolen by an invading Siamese general in the 18th century, a series of political misfortunes in Siam were attributed to the Buddha, and in 1782 it was returned to the Lao people. It was taken to Bangkok again in 1828 and was again returned a few decades later. There are a number of Buddhist temples across Luang Prabang, each a nod to the legacy of a different ruler of the former kingdom. Wat Shing Tong, also known as the Golden Tree Monastery, is a superb example of Laos temple architecture and is often seen as a symbol of Luang Prabang. Originally constructed in 1560 under the order of King Sethathirat, it remains faithful to its original architecture, with only minor repairs to its roof and golden decorations. Among the other structures, shrines, pavilions and residences on the grounds is the Golden Funeral Carriage House, home to the 12-meter carriage used for King Shisawang Wong in 1960. After his death, during the communist period, many members of the royal family were sent to re-education camps, and 90% of the country's intellectuals and skilled workers would be forced into exile. Wat Sen was built by King Kisalat, the grandson of Surina Wongsa, king of Langsang during its golden age. It was constructed in 1718 using 100,000 stones from the Mekong River, and its name, Wat Sen Sukharam, literally means Temple of 100,000 Treasures. Wat Sen is the first monastery in Luang Prabang whose hall was covered with yellow and red tiles in the fashion of modern Thailand. It was restored in 1957 in celebration of the 2,500-year anniversary of the Buddha's birth. Wat Mai is the largest and most richly decorated temple in Luang Prabang and sits beside the royal palace of the 18th century ruler King Anuru. The interior and exterior of Wat Mai are elaborately decorated with black and red lacquer and gold leaf. Luang Prabang suffered from destructive attacks by Chinese Hor marauders in 1887, and Wat Mai is one of the few temples to have survived. Luang Prabang sought protection from the French. The royal family were evacuated, and French troops from Hanoi arrived to expel the invaders. The oldest temple in Luang Prabang is Wat Visun Nalat, which was built under the order of the king. The unusual shape of this stupa, Tat Patu, was designed by the wife of the king. She was inspired by a lotus flower, though today the stupa is often called Tat Makmo, or the watermelon stupa by locals. Formerly a temple of religious art, the temple now exhibits religious artifacts and precious items of the former royal family, as well as a number of Buddhist relics.
I've been asked a question, what's your favorite ingredients? And the answer is rice.
I really want to find out how rice is grown. I definitely think it's important for a chef to know the origin of his ingredient.
Ingredients is the link between the past, the present, so that we can create for the future.
Walk the World premieres 18th June on Discovery Asia. A devastating earthquake. A race against time.
It was infernal.
This is the story
Yes, that's how I worry.
of how 12,000 people survived, cut off from the rest of the world.
You never know what might happen in the mountains.
In the Nubri Valley of the Himalayas, Beyond the Clouds, premieres 19th June on Discovery Asia. Take an unusual tour across Vietnam in an 18-wheeler.
Non-stop.
No tourists. No guides.
Let's rock and roll!
Just a Polish truck driver and travel host.
Vietnam!
18 Wheels Across Vietnam, Wednesdays on Discovery Asia. Seek out the magic of the mountains
Literally the best seat in the house.
in Uttarakhand with Bollywood actress Shivani Dandekar.
Did it!
Duster Adventures premieres 14th June on Discovery Asia.
Hello, passenger. Welcome to take my taxi.
A travelogue with a twist.
Very local, very original.
Get around Asia's most dynamic destinations with the city's informal ambassadors, taxi drivers,
Good morning, where to go?
and tap into their treasure trove
My dream is I won the lotto.
of local stories and insights.
Took the state of mind.
Taxi to Asia, Tuesdays on Discovery Asia.
The area around Luang Prabang is mostly countryside, made up of steep mountains, deep forests, and fast-flowing rivers, teeming with wildlife. Historically, Laos had a large and widely distributed population of both wild and domesticated elephants, who gave their name to the ancient kingdom of Lan Sang, land of 1,000,000 elephants. Today, there are a number of villages in Luang Prabang province known as elephant villages. Here, 15 kilometers southeast of Luang Prabang, locals undertake conservation work, caring for the elephants, protecting their habitats from logging, and offering elephant rides for tourists. Nestled in a limestone cliff along the Mekong, at the point it joins Nam U River, lies one of the most spiritual sites in Laos. Paku Caves house over 4,000 Buddha icons brought here by locals and have a religious history dating back hundreds of years. The caves are a popular pilgrimage site and get very busy during the Lao New Year. Buddhists come to bathe in the water here, hoping to receive merit in the coming year. Water is an important part of Laos New Year celebrations. Young people will respectfully pour water on their elders, then monks for blessings of long life and peace, before finally throwing water at each other. This is Quang Shi Waterfall, the largest in Luang Prabang province. Located 29 kilometers south of Luang Prabang, the water cascades over a 50-meter drop into spectacular turquoise blue pools before continuing downstream. While most pools are open to the public and tourists for swimming, one is closed off as a sacred site. The significance of water in Laos is no mere superstition. In some parts of rural Laos, people still risk their lives to fetch clean water for themselves and their crops. The landscape of Luang Prabang province is typical of that of northern Laos. Lush green forests surrounded by steep mountains. This is Route 13. Beginning at Boten in the north of Laos, at the Chinese border, it connects the city of Vientiane to Luang Prabang in the north and roughly follows the line of the Mekong River down to the border with Cambodia. This steep slope is the only way to cut through the rugged landscape. Phu Pien Pha Viewpoint offers drivers and travelers a break, with stunning views over the mountains and down into the Mekong River valley below. We now head west towards Seng Quang province on the Vietnamese border, another heavily mountainous region, and the site of an intense bombing campaign during the Vietnam War. Even today, the landscape is pockmarked from traces of the fighting here. The capital city of the province is Porn Sawan. The old capital of Seng Quang was destroyed during the US bombing raids. Porn Sawan was built in the late 1970s as a replacement capital. Along the roadside in Porn Sawan, there still lie a number of abandoned tanks left over from the conflict. This particular tank was used by the North Vietnamese Army to protect the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a supply line which ran through Laos and Cambodia to their forces in the south. On the 20th of March 1965, following the initiation of Operation Rolling Thunder against North Vietnam, President Johnson ordered the bombing of the trail. The US dropped more than 2 million tons of ordnance on Laos, making it the most bombed country in history. The bombs destroyed many villages and displaced hundreds of thousands of Lao civilians. In the remote Pek district, this is Nakampeng, a Hmong village. In the early 1960s, the CIA recruited the Hmong people to fight against the North Vietnamese army. Small groups of Hmong people remain displaced in remote parts of Laos. Some groups have only just begun coming out of hiding, while others have sought asylum in Thailand. Some of the homes in this village were built from materials collected from unexploded bombs. 30% of those dropped on Laos failed to explode, and UN agencies are still working to clear the affected areas. The nearby Khai village also continues to suffer in the shadow of the Vietnam War. A number of circular ponds scattered about this rural landscape are the craters of bomb blasts. More than 40 years after the conflict, unexploded ordnance, particularly cluster bombs, continue to affect rural communities in Laos. It is estimated that there have been more than 25,000 victims since the war ended in 1973. Still today, around 300 Laotians a year are killed or injured by unexploded bombs, and only around 1% of munitions have so far been destroyed. It may still take at least another 100 years until Laos is free of this deadly legacy.
I've been asked a question, what's your favorite ingredients? And the answer is rice.
I really want to find out how rice is grown. I definitely think it's important for a chef to know the origin of his ingredient.
Ingredients is the link between the past, the present, so that we can create for the future.
Walk the World premieres 18th June on Discovery Asia.
Hello, passenger. Welcome to Take My Taxi.
A travelogue with a twist.
Very local, very original.
Get around Asia's most dynamic destinations with the city's informal ambassadors. The taxi drivers.
Good morning. Where do you go?
And tap into their treasure trove.
My dream, I won the lotto.
Of local stories and insights.
Tokyo State of Mind.
Taxi to Asia. Tuesdays on Discovery Asia. The day that kick-started your career, where you rose to the occasion, when opportunity knocked, the moment where you raced ahead of the competition, defining who you are and will be. The Day I Ran China, Saturdays on Discovery Asia.
Signing my life away.
Seek out.
Only the duster can do this.
The magic of the mountains. With Bollywood actress Shivani Dandekar.
Literally the best seat in the house.
In an epic adventure.
I did it!
Across Uttarakhand.
My experiences in Uttarakhand just keep getting better and better.
Duster Adventures. Premieres 14th June on Discovery Asia.
Written histories of Laos prior to the rise and fall of the Lan Sang kingdom in the 14th century are scarce. Some of the few pieces of evidence that can tell us more about the region's early history are the archaeological sites of the Sheng Kuang province. The foremost among these is the Plain of Jars, discovered by Western archaeologists in the 1930s. The Plain of Jars consists of thousands of stone jars scattered around the upland valleys and the lower foothills of the Sheng Kuang Plateau. Dating back to the region's Iron Age, between 500 BC and 500 AD, French, Lao and Japanese archaeologists believe that the jars were associated with prehistoric burial practices. Human remains, burial goods and ceramics have all been found around the jars. It is one of the most important prehistoric sites in Southeast Asia. The large quantity of unexploded bombs in the area limits the excavation work that goes on here. Evidence of the bombing raids can be seen in the form of broken or displaced jars and bomb craters. South of Sheng Kuang lies the Pu Hin Bun National Conservation Area. Located in the Annamite mountain range, The conservation area is home to a number of rare wildlife species, such as the Laotian rock rat, thought to have been extinct for 11 million years. Other mammals suspected to live in Puhinbun include the Indian elephant, the Indo-Chinese tiger, and the critically endangered shaola. The vegetation is shaped by its tropical savanna climate and the rugged terrain. Across the region we find huge variety of beautiful landscapes, such as limestone forests, huge caves, and clear freshwater lakes. Roughly 21 meters deep, it is the limestone in the lagoon that gives the water its characteristically bright color. It changes every few months, from emerald green to cyan, orange, and pink. The lake is revered by locals. According to local legend, on the night of a full moon, a gong can be heard ringing across the water. The name of the lake, Kongleng, means evening gong. Further along the Mekong, where it joins the Shandong River, lies the city of Paksay. Founded by the French as an administrative outpost in 1905, it literally means the mouth of the river. The city is the second most populous city in Laos, after Vientiane. Paksay also served as the capital of the kingdom of Champasak, one of the three kingdoms which arose from the dissolved Langxiang Empire. It had only 3 emperors and was united with the rest of Laos in 1946. Champasak Palace was initially intended to be the residence of the Prince of Champasak, Chao Bonum. Sympathetic to the French in Laos, Chao Bonum served as Prime Minister for 2 terms before his exile to France in 1975. The royal palace was abandoned before its completion, after the royal Lao government was overthrown by the communist Pathet Lao. After 1975, the building served as a venue for Communist Party congresses. It has more recently been converted into a hotel. On the other side of the Mekong River, the sacred Salau Mountain rises majestically into the sky. Along the 4-kilometer trail towards the top of the mountain sits a large golden Buddha in a meditative pose. The golden Buddha casts his eyes over the Mekong River, looking compassionately down across the city of Paksay. Beside the golden Buddha, we find the temple of Wat Pu Salau. Wat Pu Salau is a relatively modern addition to Salau Mountain and houses hundreds of Buddha statues. It offers stunning views across the former kingdom of Champasak, as far as the Bolavan Plateau. Before the French moved it to Paksay in 1905, the capital was located in the nearby town of Champasak. Today, the town is very small, consisting mainly of guest houses along the riverbank, catering to tourists. A ruined Khmer Hindu temple complex, Wat Pu, is the area's main attraction for visitors. The ancient Wat Pu complex is older even than the famous Khmer temples at Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2002. While there was a temple on the site as early as the 5th century, the surviving structures date from the 11th to the 13th centuries. The complex houses the north and south palaces, which sit on terraces facing one another. It is possible that the temple was part of the ancient Chenla kingdom, an Indianized state in the Mekong Delta from around the 6th century. Some historians have even considered Wat Pu as Chenla's possible capital. By the early 10th century, the temple was part of the Khmer Empire, centered in Angkor Wat. The path leads to a central sanctuary. The front section, made of sandstone, is now occupied by 4 Buddha images, while the brick rear, which formerly contained the central representation of the Hindu deity Shiva, is now empty. Khmer people still live in the Mekong Delta today, and some still practice the unique blend of Buddhism, Hinduism, and animism, which stems from the tradition of their ancient ancestors. In the south of Champasak province, low-lying wetlands run beside the banks of the Mekong River and are home to a number of Laos ethnic groups. The Ponsalat village is inhabited by the Brau people, thought to be descended from the Khmers of Angkor. They are culturally and linguistically similar to the mountain Khmer tribes today, residing in the highlands of Cambodia. For the Brau, recurring warfare and resettlement has frequently disrupted their traditional way of life. Although the Brau are considered citizens of Laos, and most today follow a typical Laotian way of life, very few of them have risen to positions of power. As the Mekong approaches the Cambodian border, the river widens up to 14 kilometers, and the banks become lined with large numbers of small islands along the sandbanks. These islands are known as Shipandon, which means 4,000 islands. These small islands are dotted along this stretch of the Mekong, with many disappearing beneath the surface and reappearing with the tides and seasonal monsoons. The waters surrounding the islands provide plenty of fish to the local villagers and are home to the rare Irrawaddy dolphin. There are many stories of dolphins saving drowning villagers or protecting people from attacks by crocodiles. Today, a dam scheduled to be built across the Mekong River threatens the existence of the endangered dolphins, particularly in Cambodia downstream. This is the southern island of Don Det, one of the largest islands of Shipandon. Cargo ships during the French colonial period had to dock at Don Det due to the swift currents in Shipandon. To carry cargo upstream, the French constructed a 7-kilometer long narrow-gauge railway on the islands of Don Det and Don Con. To this day, the two islands are joined by the former railway bridge. The Don Det-Don Con Islands Railway opened in 1893 and at the time was the only railway in Laos. In January 2007, work began on an extension of the State Railway of Thailand across the Thai-Lao Friendship Bridge. On Don Con Island, beside the river, are a number of newly built hotels, guest houses and restaurants. The islanders are taking advantage of Laos' tourism boom, offering dolphin watching experiences and views across the Mekong River. The Shipandon area also boasts the Khon Papen waterfall, according to some estimates, the world's largest waterfall. The falls cascade down 69 feet over a series of rocks and rapids. It is the widest waterfall on the planet, and at 35,376 feet, it's almost twice the width of its largest competitor. From here, the river continues across Cambodia towards the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. Khon Papeng has long acted as a natural border, preventing invading groups traveling up the river. But the falls have also hampered Laos's ability to utilize the Mekong for international trade. Laos's past and future is bound up with the river. Often called the Sea of Laos, it is represented by the blue stripe in the Lao national flag. While Laos's prospects in the 21st century are relatively bright, buoyed by tourism as well as international investment, Communist Party censorship has shrouded much of its history in darkness. To understand the future of Laos, we need to understand the country's past, a story of kings, revolutions and conflict, but also one of cooperation, trade, and surprising similarities between the country of Laos and her neighbors along the Mekong.